Right now, we're going to go to Chris Lowe, a guy that we have quoted multiple times with the article that was published on ESPN.com. Hey, Chris, I hope you're having a great Friday afternoon. You get a bit amped up ready for college football?
Yes, sir, Ryan. It's good to be with you guys. It's I guess we've had a little taste of it last weekend and last night, but it begins in earnest tomorrow.
Well, even you think about the coverage tonight. We get a few games tonight. Get a chance to see
Right.
Wisconsin, I guess Western Kentucky, and last night we enjoyed Purdue and Northwestern, Florida State, Virginia Tech throughout LSU, Miami. I mean, I don't even plan to move out of this recliner. I mean, I think I'm just gonna get me a gallon of sweet tea.
You're telling me you're not on the plane with the Tide headed down to Orlando? I thought they'd have a seat for you.
No. I don't know.
I thought they would sit you right between Tua and Jalen.
Man, I don't know. I don't know if that would work out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll get thrown off the plane at 15,000 feet, especially with we don't get the. We don't get the love, man. I mean, you guys, especially you, when you come to town, man, you get the pass and get to hang out with Nick Saban and all those great things. And so we have to depend on you to get that inside track.
There's not a lot of hanging out with Nick. Nick's work is, as somebody on his staff told me recently, there is absolutely – they've never been around anybody who wastes less time during the day than Nick Saban, and having been around him a good bit over the last few years, I would say that's right. He is constantly doing something related to Alabama football.
Well, and I think not only I've heard you say that, but also with Bo Mattingly in the great product that he put out there, Rolling with the Tide, that was on your company's television station, ESPN, that we enjoyed. I think there was somebody else that said that they've never seen him yawn. That he's literally never, he never talks about, hey, I'm tired. I mean, I don't know where he gets the energy. I just hope I can be somewhat like that at 66.
Yeah, that makes two of us. He's he's a notoriously light eater. He doesn't eat a lot, and when he does eat, healthy. In fact, he told me recently, I think it was this spring when I was there, that he weighs exactly the same weight right now that he did when he was a senior football player at Kent State, which is like, 185 pounds or something like that. That he just is exactly the same weight. But now he's a dynamo, man. He really is, and he's. I think the difference is for him, though, Ryan. Honestly, there's a lot of us in whatever we do. Sometimes if you have long days, or you're in the middle of doing a lot of traveling or whatever, you look at it as a grind. I don't know that Nick even looks at it as a grind. He just likes doing it. He likes football. He loves evaluating players. He loves being out there and being in the middle of everything, trying to figure out. He's just such a competitor, trying to figure out a way to beat whoever they're going to play that week or beat whoever they got to beat on the recruiting trail. He just hasn't. Some guys, when they get into their 60s, they sort of feel like, you know what, I've sort of been there and done that. That's just not the way he's wired. He's thinking about what's coming next. And again, that's why I think everybody says, what's his secret sauce? He's not like a lot of people. And a lot of coaches are like that. But he's constantly thinking about next challenge, next practice, next recruiting call. And I don't know if that's ever going to change.
Chris, let's get to the $1 million question. What do you think is going to happen at the quarterback position tomorrow?
Well, I think they both will play. I've thought that, for a while and came away from, my visit there, I guess that was about, a week ago or so, thinking that. I think long-term, Tua Tagovailoa is probably the guy. Now, I will say this. I think that Jalen Hurts has played well. Did not have a great first scrimmage, but he's played well the last couple of weeks. And I knew he would. In talking to people in and around that program, they felt like that this competition, he would sort of rise in this competition. He's a different kind of quarterback than Tua. I don't think he gives them some of the dimension that Tua does, throwing it down the field and throwing around, but he also doesn't turn the football over. It doesn't have a propensity to turn it over like Tua might. And having covered Nick Saban, that I don't care how talented you are, how well you can throw it down the field. If you're going to turn the ball over, you're not going to play quarterback very long for him. So, but I think long term, this is my takeaway, Ryan, and very, very, very simply. He unlocks part of that offense, Tua Tagovailoa does, that gives them a chance to beat the best teams on their schedule. They're going to beat 90% of the teams on their schedule, whoever's a quarterback. You know that. But who's beaten them over the last 2 or 3 years? What's the common denominator of teams that beat them? They've been really, really good on defense, especially up front defensively. Auburn last year. I mean, Auburn didn't just beat them last year. They beat them up. You know, Clemson the same way. In the national championship, their defensive line, they just were able to take Hurts out of the game and not let him do what he wants to do, and Alabama wasn't able to beat him throwing the football. I think with Tua Tagovailoa, he's going to get more people involved. And the one thing Nick did tell me when I was there is he really likes his running backs and his receivers. He feels like they've got 7, 8 of those guys that can play for anybody. And it's easier. Any coach will tell you it's easier to take one guy out of the game. Let's say if it's Jalen Hurts, than it is 6 or 7 guys. And I think when you read sort of between the lines with Nick Saban, he starts talking about being a distributor of the football. He's looking for his quarterback to distribute the football. At the end of the day, that Tua Tagovailoa does that better. Now, does that mean there's not a role for Jalen Hurts, or that he's completely out of the hunt? No, I don't think that's the case at all. And I think this competition will continue. But we've seen Nick do this a couple different times over the years. He started the season playing a couple guys, and then somebody sort of takes it and runs with it. The difference in this situation is I don't think either one of these kids are going to be happy just getting a little piece of the pie, all right? And even more fascinating for me is, you have this new rule where you can play up to 4 games and not lose your year of eligibility. So in essence, you could play in both first 4 games if you wanted to, and then sort of make the decision from there. After 4 is when it would get dicey, But I do think long-term Tua Tagovailoa's our guy, and I think the feeling on the team is certainly among some of the offensive players. You put yourself in their shoes. If you're a quarterback, you feel like you're going to get the ball more. And I think that's sort of where they are. We'll see. And who knows? I mean, I know everybody else is going to take the first snap. I don't know. Coach Saban certainly didn't tell me that. I don't think he even knew when I was there. But that's just my feel coming away from spending some time there and watching a practice and everything. At the end of the day, it's gotten a lot of publicity. We've written and talked about it at ESPN a ton, but it really is a pretty good problem to have. I mean, there's a lot of schools, and I've talked to coaches all over the country who said, hey, I wish I had 2 guys like that competing at the quarterback position. One guy who's won consistently in Jalen Hurts, who's 26-2, and another guy who came off the bench, the true freshman last year, with ice in his veins through a winning touchdown pass in the championship game. So it's when you start talking about problems, Ryan, in college football, there are a lot of people who would like to have this problem.
Well, and Coach Stallings, every single Wednesday when we talk about quarterbacks or it comes up, that's exactly the quote that you just said is the same thing he tells us. It's not a problem when you have those 2 type of guys. So Coach Stallings always giving us that insight. Chris, we have taken one quote, and I bet I've quoted it 100 times, from your August 21st article on ESPN.com. And it's basically about scoring points. And it says, quote, that plays a factor too, because we have to score more points to win this season than we have in the past, end quote. That was Nick Saban in your article. How big of a hint was that to you when he gave it to you?
Well, I think it was. In sort of the context of that, he was telling me, I was asking him, and I had not been to practice yet that day. We were talking in the morning. I just said, because every year he gives me sort of and he's usually spot on about what his team is going to be. And I just said, what do you think so far? And he said, I think, Chris, we're going to be a different kind of team this year. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I think we're going to have to score more points to win games. Not every game. It's not like they're going to have to win every game 38-35 or 41-38. But they're just not – and what he means by that, I think, is twofold, right? Number one, they're going to be good on defense again. We know that. As long as Nick's there, they're always going to be good on defense. But I don't think they're going to be as dominant or as deep for a couple reasons. Number one, they've lost – look at who they've lost to pros the last 2 years. And losing both those outside linebackers was a big loss because both those guys are the pass rushers. So they're going to have to play younger guys. I don't think they'll be as deep. They will create depth because they do a really good job there of creating depth, developing guys as the season goes on. But they're not going to be as dominant up front. At least he didn't think they will be, and just smother people the way they did. Go back to the Clemson game last year in the playoffs, and they just smothered Clemson. I don't know that when they play really quality teams, they're going to be able to get away with doing it. I mean, go back to the Washington game a couple years ago at the playoffs, because they really were pretty bad that game offensively. But defensively, Washington had no chance. And I think that what he's saying is it's going to be hard for them to win games like that this year. So they may have to win more shootouts and score more points. Is that a hint that Tua Tagovailoa is a guy? Well, he certainly, again, as I said earlier, unlocks part of the offense they're going to need unlocked. I know Alabama fans get tired of hearing this, but the last couple of years, the best defenses they faced, they've lost the game. Auburn last year, Clemson a couple of years ago. If you're going to beat those teams, you got to be able to throw it down the field, and your quarterback can't be the only guy that the defense feels like it's got to take out of the game. And I think when you look at sort of Jalen's style and all the RPOs, he keeps the football, and he does create a lot of problems. But 80% of the offense goes through him when he's in there. I think when Tua's in there, it's probably more like 30 or 40 because he seems to distribute the football better. And again, maybe that's a hint, maybe it's not. Maybe they'll play. Maybe they'll fool us all and they'll line up in the Wildcat. With David Harris.
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked with Nick Saban.
They first play, they line up in the Wildcat with Damian Harris or Josh Jacobs. Jacobs was a quarterback in high school. That would be epic. It would be.
I mean, what if he brought them in, both of them at the same time, and split them out wide? But I don't think you know what I mean. I mean, just to go, hey, listen, I'm still in charge. I'll do what I want to do, because like he told us on Monday, I'll tell you when I want you to know. And he was serious too. I was like, yes, you are. But it's fun to cover this guy, man. I mean, he gives you everything you're looking for in quotes. I mean, you could sit there and listen to him, and trust me, we've picked your article apart, and then we also picked what Kirk Herbstreit told Paul earlier this week. I mean, we have dissected your article and Kirk's comments like nobody here in T-Town.
Yeah, well, and everybody, it's not just at Alabama. Everybody wants to know who the quarterback's going to be. You look around the country, and that's always because he's the guy that handles the ball offensively on every snap, and it's just different there because you got a guy that's returning who was 26-2, took him to the championship game each of the last 2 years, and obviously was not effective there toward the end of the season last year throwing the football against Auburn or the first half, or really the Clemson game. He wasn't great throwing it either, and then in the first half against Georgia, and Nick puts in Tua in the second half, and he leads them back to the win. So all of a sudden, what do you do? I mean, do you lose your job? And I've had coaches ask me this. Do you lose your job as quarterback based on one half of football when you got a whole body of work? And if you're Jalen Hurts and you put yourself in his shoes, that's probably the way he and his family look at it. But you also, and the thing that Nick Saban has done consistently all the time that I've known him and covered him, is he's going to play who he feels like gives him the best chance to win. He's going to play the guy that's the hardest to defend and a guy that the team believes in the most. And I think ultimately, when you look at this situation long term, that's going to be Tua Tagovailoa.
Based on a guy that's met with Nick Saban the last 30 minutes. I mean, see, we're picking this interview apart. I mean, Chris, you
know what's going to happen. He's going to start Jalen, and Jalen's going to play 90% of the game, and Tua's going to play like one series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what if he starts Jalen and he goes out and throws for 4 touchdowns in the first quarter? Then what do you do, right? I mean,
well, you do what Nick. And I love all the Monday morning quarterbacks. And listen, I've been Monday morning quarterback plenty of times in my life too, who say, well, Nick waited too long to put in Tua last year. So how many coaches out there? And trust me, I've talked to all of them, like Gundy, Dabo Sweeney. How many coaches out there with a defense like he had? And people forget about complimentary football and how good Alabama's been over the years at complimentary football, Nick. But how many coaches take a guy off the field at quarterback who hasn't lost but one or two times, okay? And everybody knew that Tua was talented, and he'd shown it in practice. I mean, people knew he could throw the football. But how many people do that? Nobody, you know. But when on that stage, when they had to have a spark, and when they were not going to beat Georgia going the way they were in the first half, Saban did pull the trigger and brought in Tua Tagovailoa. So I just love the revisionist history because everybody says, well, I would have earlier. Well, you know what? When you're winning and you're number one in the country, you hadn't lost any games, nobody in their right mind is going to replace their quarterback.
Hey, Chris, real quick, let me ask you, Washington-Auburn, what do you see happening?
Well, I think Auburn's going to win because Auburn defensively is I know Clemson gets all the credit, or most of the credit has been the best defensive line in the country. I'm not so sure that Auburn's not right there. I spent the day with Auburn last week, too, and, boy, they are outstanding along the defensive line. And I think we'll be better in the secondary than probably people are giving credit for. Stidham will be better. Ryan will utilize him better. He will be more comfortable. Offensive line, they got to get that right. They got to be able to protect him. And Washington's really good. This is a better Washington team, I think, than the one that played Alabama in the playoff a couple of years ago.
Wow.
But being in Atlanta, I think gives Auburn a little bit of the edge. I think Auburn wins this game. But, boy, they need to because their schedule, I look around the country, I don't know if anybody's got a tougher schedule than Auburn. And you start talking about schedules, everybody talks about players, this and that. That means as much as anything, we start trying to figure out how a season's going to go. I mean, and I know all the Alabama fans are how they're going to react to this, but if you gave Auburn Alabama schedule and Alabama Auburn schedule, then we might look at this a little bit different this season. But every year it's a little bit different depending on how the schedule. And I'll say this, schedules look a lot different sometimes in late November than they do now. Think about what we were talking about this time last year, how Alabama-Florida State was the greatest season opener, the most anticipated season opener in the last decade in college football. Well, Florida State ends up having a bad year. So it changes as you go throughout the season, but I do think Auburn will win this football game.
Chris, where are you going this weekend?
I'm actually going to be over in Clemson for a couple of days doing a story on their quarterback situation leading into the Texas A&M game, which that's a game I'm really looking forward to. Second week, Clemson goes to College Station to play in. But I'll be over there doing something with them. So I'll get a chance to watch a lot of the games, which I look forward to. I'm like you, with every game on TV now, it's sometimes if I'm not at a game, if I'm somewhere on assignment working on a story for the future, you get to see actually more football than you do if you're at one game.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm looking, like I said, everybody said, you going to go to Orlando? And it's really logistically, it's difficult because I was going to drive, and it's literally, it's 8 hours, 9 hours. So it was really difficult. I was like, man, I'll stay right here. All the other guys at the radio station, the morning guys, are all gone there. They're already there. So it's let those guys go, and we'll certainly be here. Chris, I always enjoy your insight, man. It's simply amazing. I've got half a dozen more games, but really out of time. I appreciate the article. I appreciate your coverage of college football. It's got us through the offseason with a lot of the conversation pieces that you provide on ESPN, also on your Twitter account, CLOW ESPN. Chris, as always, thank you again. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some great college football. We'll be able to connect soon.
All right. Same to you, Ryan. It's always good being with you. Take care.